All right, man, peace. So, as I'm sure you guys know by now, the former quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I remember correctly, Michael Vick, former superstar quarterback who was incarcerated for fighting dogs and killing dogs, he recently caused quite an uproar amongst all of the pro-blacks, the internet revolutionaries, all the people who talk shit on the internet or who get on TV and want to pose like they're so-called pro-black, like these two right here. He caused an uproar amongst them for saying something in regards to their new icon, the new do-nothing revolutionary Colin Kaepernick, the guy who's supposedly the new leader for black people, so-called black people. And he is a leader in a way, but I'll touch on that in a minute. Like I've stated, he's caused a big hullabaloo, a tumult amongst them, and they lost their minds for a couple of days over his basic common sense comments, in my opinion. But I'm going to, I'm going to go in depth in regards to why I agree with him. So let's see what they have to say here.
No question.
Michael Vick was the latest to chime in with a blistering take on why Colin Kaepernick remains unsigned by an NFL team following his national anthem protest last season. Appearing on Fox Sports yesterday, Vick offered some advice to Kaepernick about how to repair his image.
The first thing we got to get Colin to do is cut his hair. Listen, I'm not up here to try to be politically correct, but, even if he puts cornrows in it, I don't think he should represent himself, in that way in terms of, just the hairstyle. Just go clean cut. Why not? You're already dealing with a lot of controversy surrounding this issue.
To me, the only thing that Michael Vick did was state his opinion. He was stating it from the perspective of a man who was also a pariah, who had to ingratiate himself into a corporate world. And this is the distinction that a lot of people are not making. Pro-blacks, they never make distinctions because, for the most part, they just want to be emotional. That's why they're so easily manipulated. And, part of the manipulation is being led by people like Colin Kaepernick. All right. But, when you read what Michael Vick said via Twitter to walk it back, that shows you that he never should have made the statement, not because he's wrong, but because he wasn't ready for the blowback from all of the Twitter revolutionaries and, all the internet, the social justice warriors, as they're called, all the people who really just want a hug. All right. But let's let them read what Michael Vick had to say on social media when he was made to kowtow.
Now, naturally, Vick's comments created its own controversy, and this morning he walked it back. He tweeted Kaepernick's hair was not the reason he wasn't in the NFL, and that he does believe at some point this season Kaepernick will be signed by an NFL team. Colin Kaepernick, though, he obviously noticed Michael Vick's comments, and he followed it up with this. He tweeted out the definition of the Stockholm Syndrome.
Now, if you guys notice, if you pay attention, whenever Kaepernick is addressed in a way that he finds unfavorable, he will always respond back like a social justice warrior, like an internet revolutionary does, with some type of meme or link. He can never speak or project his thoughts on his own. It always has to be encapsulated with what somebody else said. That's how he basically he's trying to read a manual on being so-called pro-black. And these are the type of tricks and ploys that are used on pro-blacks to constantly have them confused and bemused. Things like the Stockholm Syndrome and the Willie Lynch letter and all these other things to keep the blame game and the slavery narrative going, the post-slave narrative going. Kaepernick doesn't really know what he thinks. I'm telling you that right now. Right now, he's almost like Tupac. When Tupac did Juice and he played the character of Bishop, he got stuck in that character. And it got to the point where he had to live up to the crazy image that he created in Juice for the rest of his life. And it's the same thing with Kaepernick. Now, Kaepernick has to live up to what he himself got caught up in the fervor of that so-called Black Lives Matter bullshit last year, which was totally funded by the the super liberal Jewish pedophile, multi-billionaire George Soros, allegedly. All right. That was all funded by George Soros. As usual, the pro-blacks are always getting puppeted. He got caught up in it. And as I've stated in the past, I believe that Kaepernick is an asset, and eventually it'll come out. But right now, he's caught up in an image that he's created for himself, at least on the surface, and he has to keep running with it. But you know what? Let's let them continue on here.
Well, so Mike, what's your reaction to all this?
Well, I don't want to waste our precious time on the source or the setting for this silly suggestion. But I do have a suggestion, though. I got one. I got a gift, actually. This is for you, Colin Kaepernick. This is what I want you to, the next time, if and when somebody calls you to come in for a workout or a visit, I want you to put this in the back of that afro. Go all the way.
Now, let me just chime in real quick. When you look at the so-called afro pick, first off, the fist is not for so-called black power. That's a Marxist hand sign, the fist in the air. All right? Really a Luciferian hand sign, because Marxism springs straight out of Luciferianism. All right? And there's this brother who keeps coming into my comments talking about, to be a Luciferian, you have to have angel's blood and all this. I'm going to deal with that when I do the video on the Nephilim. But no, being a Luciferian has nothing to do with angel's blood. When you look at the so-called Afro pick, it shows you what it's about, because you have the Nero's cross in there within the so-called Black Power fist sign, which is really, like I said, just a Luciferian hand sign. All right. The Nero's cross is a symbol for quote unquote Satan. All right. It's the upside down cross with the broken broken crossbar. But that's neither here nor there. The point being, this guy's posing. He's telling Colin Kaepernick to go into his next NFL interview with a afro pick in his afro, but he himself will not grow an afro. Here's my thing. For all these people who are so-called pro-black on television, when are you going to grow an afro and grow cornrows, since you're giving this advice to Colin Kaepernick? And let me just establish something, because I know that people are going to say, well, you have other people in the NFL that have afros and have cornrows and have long dreads. Colin Kaepernick, the hairstyle that he has right now and the facial hair that he has right now is a direct correlation to his philosophical beliefs, or at least his alleged philosophical beliefs. The other players in the NFL, their hairstyle is not a direct correlation to their philosophical beliefs, at least as far as has been broadcast in the media. Okay? So to just make it a little clearer, it's like the difference between somebody who's wearing red because they like the color red, as opposed to somebody who's wearing red because they're gang affiliated. You understand? That's why Michael Vick said what he said, because the hairstyle that Colin Kaepernick is wearing is a direct allusion and a correlation to his belief system. And for those of you who don't know, the reason why Kaepernick is really growing his hair out like that is not only for the so-called Black Power movement, but it's really for socialism or Marxism. When Karl Marx embraced the Luciferian ideology, that's when he grew his hair out, and that's when he grew the huge beard. All right? Because it was supposed to represent anarchy. Okay? In their belief system, growing your hair out and having a huge beard or growing a long goatee is for anarchy.
Away with it, okay? Why should he have to change his hair? Why should he have to conform with his body of work? Because, see, the reason is, and this is why I can pull this out and say, wear this to your next interview in the NFL. It'll never happen. And the reason nobody else is going to call him is because they can't sell Colin Kaepernick.
No, the reason why nobody's going to call him is because he's more trouble than he's worth. That's pretty much the bottom line. His productivity is not matching the media baggage that he's going to bring with him. And then you have super liberal media members like you who think that you're championing his cause, and you're really only hamstringing him.
The owner of the Giants, John Mara, suggested this recently about how he's never seen anything like the fan feedback about you had better not sign Colin Kaepernick after his anthem protest. You can sell a redemption or reclamation project as it relates to an athlete, a football player, particularly a black football player, because people are much more willing to buy a black man as violent or aggressive, especially for purposes of their entertainment. What they cannot buy is unapologetic black man. They don't have a problem. Even the ones that necessarily don't have a problem with black people don't like blackness.
Well, the real issue is, why is it necessary for somebody else to appreciate your so-called blackness if that's really what you believe and that's what you love? Right? That's what, that's the inverted psychological disorder that pro-blacks have. They scream on and on and on and on about how proud they are to be so-called black, but their whole existence is predicated on the validation of others. And this is what I go on and on about. These people are phony. They're trying to hustle a lot of you brothers, man. And this is why I rail against the pro-blacks, because they're trying to front like they're so confident, and they're really not. Their whole existence is based off of being accepted by other people. And we know who those other people are. We're talking about the so-called white man and woman. All right?
And what we're talking about is, hey, conform, cut your hair, because that is a symbol of being militant. That is a symbol for being proud of being African American. That's a symbol for being for your protest. So if you cut that, you can somehow make people more comfortable, which you and I both know it won't.
No. I have many issues with what Michael Vick had to say.
No, you just have many issues in general. All right. This is your average super liberal fake pro-black woman. This is the same woman who was given a lap dance to what's this guy's name who plays Wolverine in the X-Men movies, looking all awkward and no rhythm, but was all into giving him a damn lap dance. What's this guy's name? I'm sure you brothers will put it in the comments. This guy who played Wolverine, whatever the hell his damn name is. This chick was all up giving him a lap dance, but she's supposed to be pro-black. Normal, super liberal, pro-black woman full of shit.
To say, but probably among the bigger ones was that he framed his entire comments around the fact that Colin Kaepernick had something to which he should apologize for.
Right.
See, I'm sure he was channeling his own experience, because he had to go on that redemption tour that you just spoke about. And yes, right. And Michael Vick, yes, you had something to apologize for. Mm-hmm. You had an image you needed to repair. Colin Kaepernick has nothing to apologize for.
That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong. And where she was right is that Michael Vick was tapping into his own experience. But she's wrong in believing that Colin Kaepernick has nothing to apologize for. No, he has nothing to apologize for to you, but to the old guard of NFL owners who are going to be cutting his check. If he wants to be employed by them, then yes, he must appear contrite to them. And this is where the disassociation from reality comes with the pro-blacks. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want the checks from the old school, the old guard, oligarchic setup, the plutocracy of the NFL ownership. They want their checks. They want the fat checks, but they want to have it their way and, stage sit-ins and protests during NFL games. The shit don't work like that. All right. And in reality, like I said, it's really because you just want the attention of the so-called white man and white woman. You want their acceptance and their validation. So, yes, if he wants to be employed by them, yes, he must show contrition to them. It's not their job to accept all of his ideologies. All right. It's not their job. But once again, that's the pro-black trying to force their inverted sense of pride down everybody else's throat.
For his entire protest is about bettering this country and bettering humanity.
According to you. According to you, his entire protest is about bettering this country. Has Colin Kaepernick, has he stated what his true goals are? He said his goal is to stop police brutality. Is that going to happen? Brutality is truly in the eyes of the beholder. And as I've said numerous times, if so-called black people were really serious about the police issue, you know what they would say? You know what? Let's restore our culture so that we can create our own monetary system, our own government, and our own police force. Instead, you want to meander on with this circular argument, these same repetitive conversations, quote-unquote conversations that you're really only having with yourself, where the so-called white man's going to sit down with you and receive all your complaints and say, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to arrest you as harshly as we used to. We're going to be very nice to you now. All right, even though your families are filled with confusion, your neighborhoods are filled with strife. You refuse to police yourselves. The so-called black man refuses to put the so-called black woman in her place and commandeer the family like it's supposed to be. Instead, he wants to call the black woman God. So really what you want is you want the white man to clean up your mess, but you want him to be nice while doing it. All the while not understanding that every time somebody goes to prison, they become a stock option. What's in it for them for you not to go to prison? The real problem is that you have a very sick codependency on the so-called white man that you're trying to justify through that Martin Luther King bullshit dream, that Luciferian dream of globalists, everybody coming together. In this woman's mind, Colin Kaepernick is actually trying to do something right for the world. Why is that? Because she's a socialist. As all pro-blacks are, they're socialists. They just don't know it.
So you mean to tell me that he has to apologize for that? To who and for what?
Well, you know, when you made that controversial statement a few years ago, when you compared some coach to Hitler, I can't remember who it was. Was it Calipari or Patino? She compared some coach to Hitler, and ESPN suspended her. She had to show contrition, even though I'm sure that she didn't think that she was wrong. That's what happens when you're employed by somebody else. That's why when I come on here, I tell you, brothers, look, corporate America is not for the so-called black man. If you have a job, that's great. If you're making an honest living, you're not hurting anyone, that's great. But your mind should be on trying to perfect whatever talents you have, whatever skills you have, and start your own business so that you can be free and be liberated to the best of your ability. You don't have to answer to anyone, and you don't have this deferential alter ego installed or implanted in the subconscious of your mind where you think that everybody is above you. One of the reasons why the so-called black man thinks that the black woman is above him is because she's above him on these corporate America jobs. And that's a major issue.
And you're right, Mike. I mean, Colin Kaepernick, look, we've been saying this for months. He's not getting back into the NFL. They're not comfortable with him. They don't like his outspokenness.
He shouldn't conform in order to do so.
And
well, I hope that you're going to pay his bills. You keep hyping him up. I hope that you're going to pay his bills, because we know how you niggas are. Y'all talk a whole lot of shit, but you know, when it comes time to really back up your so-called heroes and your so-called leaders, you know where to be found. I hope that you're going to go to your bosses at ESPN and say, you know what, I think that we should hire Colin Kaepernick to be a color commentator. I mean, it'd be color with a capital COLOR. Right? Go to your bosses and tell them, look, we need to hire Kaepernick if he doesn't sign with an NFL team. I bet you won't do it. Bet you won't do it. You guys should grow afros until Colin Kaepernick gets an NFL job. I bet you won't do it, since you're so-called pro-black.
Look, a lot of people out there, you guys can continue to point to his hair, to point to alleged demands about money, alleged demands about role.
Stop using my word. All right. The problem is that Kaepernick, he's bit off more than he could chew, and now he has to keep playing a role. He has to hope that his backers and his sponsors, the Caucasian Jews that are backing him and sponsoring him behind the scenes, that they keep subsidizing him. That's probably why he's really not sweating it, because he probably has a good little backbone of financial support from Caucasian Jew liberals, and they probably say, don't worry about it, we got you. Right? Just go out and say what we want you to say.
We know what it is, right? Because if it were related to just football, all right, Colin Kaepernick would be in the league, because there are far worse quarterbacks, as we've seen, be signed by other teams. Right.
But is Colin Kaepernick a guy that you look at and you say, you know what, we're going to bring him in as a backup, and if our quarterback goes down, we know that he can lead us to a Super Bowl? If the answer is no, and you're a 75-year-old Caucasian owner who grew up calling black people niggers and all type of other quote-unquote derogatory names, why would you bring in Colin Kaepernick? See, so-called black people keep trying to think of white people in terms of, well, you know, what's fair and what's just and what's right. That's not how they came into power. So why would you think that they would think like that? Right? That's the detachment that the pro-black has from reality. One of many detachments.
But that goes back to that they can't sell it. Because if you sign Colin Kaepernick, you go to a press conference explaining it, because he's not apologizing, because he didn't do anything wrong, your fan base, some of your fan base is going to be like, well, you're co-signing this.
Well, he didn't do anything wrong in your opinion. But to the 65+% of people in America who happen to state that they're of Caucasian descent, allegedly, for the vast majority of them, he has done something wrong. All right. Pretty much every Caucasian outside of the younger crowd, the weed smoking crowd, the liberal crowd, They believe that Kaepernick is committing acts of treason against his country. Let's be for real. They associate the American flag with America. They associate it with the military. So for you to say he's done nothing wrong, that's purely your opinion. And I don't even know if you really have that opinion off camera. A lot of these people are just acting.
Again, you can say, hey, we vetted the domestic abuser. We vetted the animal abuser. We trust that this was a one-time thing. Whereas Colin Kaepernick possesses, wait for it, a quote-unquote character flaw in the eyes of a lot of people. But see, it always comes down to, there are two sets of circumstances when it comes to moving goalposts, okay? From a football standpoint, he's not good enough, because Vick even said this. He's not good enough. It's his play. But Pete Carroll said he was a starter in this league.
Right.
Okay?
That's not what Pete Carroll really meant. If Pete Carroll felt like he was a starter, they would have signed him. Who the fuck wouldn't sign a starter to be a backup? So Pete Carroll was just bullshitting. He did that to appease all of the social justice warriors on his team, the Michael Bennett's and the Richard Shermans and all the guys who want to act like they're so socially conscious, the Doug Baldwins, all these guys who want to go on TV and talk shit all damn day. All right, same guys who behind the scenes they want the white woman to give them a big hug and the white man to give them a big hug. Bunch of actors and charlatans. Pete Carroll did that to appease them. Who the hell is going to take somebody who should be a starter and not sign them as a backup? Give me a break.
Okay. Well, you know what, Colin, it's not about his protests, but we don't want the distraction from our second-string quarterback. You know, so which one is it exactly?
And then he's a bad teammate, despite the fact that the 49ers, his teammates gave him the highest award that you can get within the organization.
We want you to be seen and not heard, but go do an interview and prove and tell us how committed you are to football.
Well, unfortunately, the teammates are not the ones who signed his contracts. Many of us have worked in corporate America jobs where we saw somebody who we thought was doing a good job, but the so-called manager or so-called director didn't like them for whatever reason and let them go. And we said, damn, so-and-so got let go? For what? Right? You don't have the power to hire them back. And it just is what it is. You have to do a job to meet the demands of your employer, not your fellow employees. That's just how it works.
All these different things that he has to do that nobody else has to do. But even when it comes to the subject of protests, it's always been that. Well, you got to dress a certain way. You got to assume a certain posture.
You got to protest a certain way.
You got to protest in a neat and orderly fashion.
Don't you come to work with a suit and tie on, nigga? You act like you at work with a dashiki on. This is what I mean when I say these people, they're totally bugged out their mind. They're totally disassociating from their own reality. This guy doesn't have an afro. He's not wearing anything so-called Afrocentric in regards to his attire. He's a complete conformist. And he's acting like he cannot comprehend why Michael Vick gave the advice that he gave, which really he shouldn't have said shit. All right, I'll let them pro-blacks, let them go out there and perpetuate their delusion and maintain their inner anger. Right? The inner anger coming from the fact that they can't get the white man to give them a hug. That's all that shit is from. Trying to front like they so for their people. If you really was for your people, you wouldn't be concerned about what the white man thinks. At all. At all. If you really love yourself, you wouldn't care about what they think. But we know that's not the case.
Don't dare inconvenience everybody with the form of your protest. It's always you got to look a certain way, dress a certain way, speak a certain way in order to be respected. That's that damn respectability politics that Michael Vick and that other guy were out there perpetuating yesterday.
That other guy, he means Whitlock. Whitlock is the bane of the so-called pro-black media. They hate him with a passion. Whitlock is, I always say, he's like Jesse Jackson to me. He either hits one out the park or he strikes out bad. But he pisses off the so-called pro-black portion of the media.
Today. So this conversation, it wasn't worth justifying or dignifying or giving attention to the sources of this conversation, but the suggestion in and of itself remains problematic. That somehow if he cuts his hair, he'll be more digestible, he'll be more acceptable.
Well, it's much like, as African Americans are often told, if we just uplift our communities,
before you want to talk about police brutality,
we have to earn the right to be respected, right?
Sure you do. You know why they could tell you that you have to earn the right to be respected? Because they know that you hold them in such high esteem. If the Caucasian knew that you didn't give a shit about what they thought, they would stop telling you that you have to jump over hurdles to get their acceptance. They tell you what you need to do to get their acceptance because they know that you want their acceptance. That's how they know. And you validate that thought process every time you open your mouth, that you're desperate for their acceptance. You can try to act like you're not all you want.
Precisely. There's this checklist. There's this checklist that they keep getting added to do things before you can have equal.
Yeah, and they're going to keep adding to it because there's no such thing as equal rights. You're not self-determined. You're not self-defined. So, these two guys, these two people here, they're symptomatic of the mental disorder of the so-called pro-black. All right, man, peace. So, Michael Vick, he got caught up in a lot of nonsense with the so-called pro-blacks. They got mad at certain comments that he made about Colin Kaepernick. Of course, Kaepernick jumped in, being the patron saint of internet revolutionaries. He jumped in with his normal response of either a meme or some type of link with somebody else explaining his response. But anyway, I just wanted to create some context for what Michael Vick meant when he was talking about Colin Kaepernick. This was him on the Skip and Shannon show, not on the Speak for Yourself show where he actually made the statement that Colin should cut his hair. This was him on the Skip and Shannon show, which aired before that. And Shannon's going to ask him about Colin Kaepernick. And let's see the tone that Michael Vick has, because they're trying to act like he was so demeaning and denigrating of Colin. Let's see what Mike has to say.
You see a guy going through a very similar situation, and for a very different reason. Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
If there was some advice that you could give him, what would you tell him?
As of right now, I would tell Colin to stay patient. It's a very difficult time for him, and we know the reasons why he has to be real meticulous in his walk.
Now look at what he said. He said, we know the reasons why he has to be really meticulous in his walk. In other words, he seems to be not necessarily siding with Kaepernick, but being very understanding of the position that Kaepernick has taken, being very respectful to the stance that Kaepernick has taken. Point being, the reason why I wanted to include this interview was to debunk the so-called pro-black allegation that he's trying to demean Kaepernick, or he's trying to relegate Kaepernick's stance, or he's trying to side with the so-called white man. Only thing that Michael Vick was doing was being a realist. The only way that Kaepernick is going to get back in the NFL, if he's truly serious about getting back in the NFL, is to appeal to the owners, right? Find a way to appeal to their sensibilities. That's it. So he made a statement which he probably shouldn't have made, because you have to understand, pro-blacks, they live in their own world. They're delusional. And like I constantly say, they really just want the validation of the so-called white man and white woman. That's really what they live for. They try to front like they're so strong and independent, and they're not. They're weak. All right. Why is that? Because they have no end game. But let's get back to what Michael's saying here.
And his form of thinking right now, don't get frustrated. And I know it can be difficult right now, but he has to just wait around till a team comes around that can suit to his skill set and in terms of plans. And I think Colin's still a great player. I think he has a lot to give. He's fairly young. But he has to land in the right situation. Now, I think that's the reasoning that he's not signed with the team, because every style isn't for every quarterback.
Exactly. Kaepernick is inaccurate. He gets flustered in the pocket. He's a one-read quarterback. Most of these teams in the NFL now, they run some form of West Coast offense where you have to go through multiple reads. Kaepernick is not a multiple read quarterback. All right. He's a guy that as soon as his first read is not working, he wants to run. All right. That can be very revelatory in regards to his mindset. When plan A is not working, he flees. That's probably why he's not too eager to get into debates with people, because he kind of knows that he can't really substantiate his viewpoints. And when I say debates, I'm talking about going on these television shows, since he has such strong belief in his platform. He should go on these television shows and let these talking heads question him, so that he can give a clearer understanding of his viewpoints and hopefully get a job in the NFL. But he refuses to do that. But look, I'm on record as saying I believe he's being controlled anyway. All right, both by his woman and other Caucasian liberal groups. All right, that's the history of the so-called liberal black, especially the ones on Front Street. They're getting controlled in the background.
And I witnessed that in Pittsburgh.
Right.
I was able to adjust and make some things happen and win some games and pull one out in the end, but it was tough. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. So I think the irony in his situation is him just having to wait it out and not get discouraged.
A companion topic to Colin that I've always wanted to ask you about was the Riley Cooper situation in Philly. I was so angered because Riley obviously was caught on cell video uttering the single most evil word in the English language. I'm talking about the N-word ending in the hard ER.
Oh, you know what that word is, Skip. You say it every day in the morning when you look in the bathroom mirror. Nigger! I can't get my day started without saying it.
And yet you stepped up, I think it was the next day, and said, I'm going to roll with him, because he said he expressed his sorrow over it, and you as a team, and you were the team leader, you bought into it, and I thought he should have been gone. Can you reflect on that in your decision to back him publicly right away?
That was part of the leadership. You know, it was not the easiest thing to do because I had Deshaun and Lil Sean and Jeremy, everybody looking at me saying, you know, why are you supporting this? But I looked at a locker room.
You had me saying that too.
Yeah, I had a locker room that was so divided at the time.
And now you see what he said? When Riley Cooper, and if you remember, he was on video saying that he'd fight every nigga there. And that's unquestionable. It was on video. Michael Vick said that the locker room was so divided. What was there to be divided about? What was there to be divided about? That showed you that the other Caucasian players were going to side with Riley Cooper, right? If there was any type of racial issue, they were going to side with him. They were not going to side with quote unquote right and wrong, right? Whatever your viewpoint on what right or wrong is, they were going to side with him based on their perceived race. All right? It is what it is.
And we were 2 weeks away from, opening up against the Washington Redskins, first game of the regular season. I'm looking at the guys in the locker room, and I'm like, this is my time to step up. Not for just Riley in terms of what he did, but in a sense of, the totality of the whole situation was, it was tough on everybody. And Chip put me on the spot. He looked at me, he said, Mike, you have anything to say? And I had to come up with something just, impromptu, right on the spot. But I said what was in my heart, and I wanted everybody to continue to grow from that situation, or try to grow, not continue to grow, because it was so unexpected. And it was shocking to me. It was Riley, a guy who I've grown to know for so many years and spent a lot of time with.
No, it was somebody that you thought you knew, and you were surprised because, unfortunately, a lot of brothers are not spiritual. All right, and you have to understand something. When I say spiritual, I'm not talking about emotional. People get emotions confused with spiritual. Like a lot of times I see brothers in the comments, it's not about hate, brothers. It's about knowledge. All right. If you're walking down the street and a rattlesnake is approaching you, you don't cross the street because you're scared or because you hate the snake. You cross the street because you understand the snake's nature. All right. It's about understanding nature and about understanding the nature that is given to various groups and various demographics, various types. You have to understand those things. It doesn't necessarily make you a bigot or anything of that nature. It's just track record oftentimes predicts future conduct. All right. So Riley Cooper was a country boy I believe he's from Florida. I don't know why Michael Vick will be surprised that he viewed blacks as niggers. Right? People can sell you on an image for a long time, but normally the environment that they're raised in and the germ that's within their soul is always going to manifest itself. Oh, it is what it is. But let me say this: I do understand where Michael Vick was coming from as a leader of that team. the Philadelphia Eagles, they are a corporate representation of their owner. They're a part of the NFL. It's not Michael Vick's responsibility to stand on a pro-black platform to appease his teammates. It's his job as the leader to keep the team together in whatever fictitious manner he can in order to get the job done. Now, when you get off the field and you clock out, then that's a whole different thing. All right? You cannot mix personal with business. You could be going to work every day working with a Klans member, with a skinhead. Your job is to do your job. Their job is to do their job. All right?
And just couldn't see him being that type of person. I knew deep down that wasn't him. I know how he can be when his temper flare, but it was shocking. But in that moment, that was the time for me to step up and lead, and I brought everybody back together. And that's one of my proudest moments.
Well, you bring everybody back to a degree, but please keep in mind, a drunk heart speaks a sober mind. All right? In vino veritas, that's Latin. There's truth in the vine. All right? When people get drunk, their real spirit comes out. Don't ever believe when somebody says, oh, well, I was drunk. That's why I said this. That's why I did this. Look, there's truth in the vine. Like a lot of you brothers, you're dealing with these broads. Oh, well, I just slept. I just did that. I slept with this guy. Or I slept with you because I was drunk. No, it was because that's something that you wanted to do and you needed the alcohol to lower your inhibitions. All right. Or you needed an excuse. All right. So Riley Cooper, there's a little doubt in my mind that's what he really felt. And who gives a shit? All right. The so-called blacks who had their feelings hurt by that video, you know why? It's because they wanted a hug from Riley Cooper. That's why. All right. LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson, all them guys, they wanted a hug from Riley Cooper. They thought they thought he was their boo thing. And they found out it was something different. All right. If I was on the team, I'd have been like, I don't give a fuck. Hey, if you think you can whoop every nigga there, good for you. I'm here to play this game. I got to get this check. I got to go provide for my family. I don't give a fuck what you talking about.
That's
one of my proudest
So no regrets about
No regrets, absolutely not.
Good for you.
Stand alone.
Interesting.
We're going to have
Good for you. That's the only way to stand, is to stand alone.
much more with Michael Vick coming up.
Oh, there's definitely going to be much more with Michael Vick.